And in the words of Bhagavan Nrsimha to Prahlad, O child, may you be blessed with long life. It is very difficult for one who does not love me to see me. For after seeing me just once, a creature should never suffer again. Should never cause himself to suffer again. Should never inflict suffering on himself by having other desires. That's Nrsimha to Prahlad. And then Shrutadeva Vakya cha Satvang Sadhi Swabhrityan Naha Kim Deva Karavamate or Kim Deva Karavamahe Etadanto Nunam Klesho Yad Bhavan Akshigo Charaha. O Deva, please instruct us, your servants, in what we should do for you. When you appear before a human being's eyes, all their troubles come to an end. That's from the prayers of King Shrutadev to Bhagavan Krishna. So that's a kind of a interesting chapter in the Bhagavatam, because it doesn't really seem to have much of a point. But even so, let's say that it's a minor gospel. And here it says, O Deva, please instruct us, your servants, in what we should do for you. When you appear before a human being's eyes, all their troubles meet an end. So, 7.3. The senses must be imbued with the internal potency. Tad evam, tat prakashena. Tat prakashena, the prakasha of that Swarup Shakti, Bhagavan's self-revealing potency. So tadevam tat prakashena nikshesha shuddha chittatve siddhe. So he was making a point. The point was that by seeing Krishna, one is purified. First, we talked about purification and saying purification wasn't enough, but that actually the purification was a consequence of the other, right? That your purification of heart, according to bhakti, this is talk about bhakti, according to bhakti, you become purified by the extent or the depth of your devotion to God. You become transformed by that. And all the different things that it entails, what it means to have the personality and the character of a devotee. What does it mean to be a lover of God? What on earth does it mean to be a lover of God? And why is it a good thing anyway? Especially since so few people understand how God is a reality. Not only a reality, but the reality. Reality with a capital R. So, tad evam tat prakashena nikshesha shuddha chittatve siddhe. So it has been established by the previously mentioned verses, that one becomes purified of all sins, of all wickedness, of all inappropriateness, through the attainment of God. So now I'm telling you to think of it in terms of krama also, of degrees, because the extent to which one has that kind of uh, uh, purity of heart and that kind of being possessed or taking on the pure nature of devotion, the character of devotion. So tadevang tad prakashena nikshesha shuddha chittatve siddhe. So taking that as being established now, that through seeing God, to whatever degree, that the seeing of God, the revelation of God, internal or external, that all that arises through the manifestation of primarily of God's desire to reveal himself as a response to the devotion of that bhakta. So, Purusha Karananani Tadiya Swaprakashata Shakti Tadatmya Pannataya Eva Tat Prakashata Vimanavanti Syuhu. So now your senses, the senses with which you operate, you are seeing the world with senses that are material senses. They are meant to see material things. Those very same senses can look at the same things and see something totally different. Just like you can train the eye, an athlete and so on, people who are talented, they can train their senses to make them more acute. So we train our senses to see God. That is what bhakti is about. And of course, as one's eyesight improves, one does get a clearer vision of the divine in all aspects. If one sees God's work, if one sees God's work going on around him, then that is a sign that he is seeing God's presence. If he sees God in the people he loves, in the act of loving itself, right? That's also a part of the culture of seeing God. To hear about Krishna and to hear about Braja Dham and to hear about the purity of love of the Brajavasis and of Krishna's love for them and how it was totally unaffected by anything other than spontaneity and love. So a world, the world of Vaikuntha, the world of Braja Dham, Krishna, the end point of all the Vishnus, Krishna, finally the supreme enjoyer. All right, so it follows. So then, so it follows that the human senses acquire the ego. Now, this is the thing I had difficulty with this, and I'm still not so hard on this translation. But the ego of perceiving Bhagavan. So how do the senses acquire the ego Mm. So what exactly is meant? It means that uh, I believe what the intent here is that the senses, the human senses, are directed towards the sense objects, and the divine senses are tending towards. They want to relish. They want to experience the divine sense objects. So that when so the senses, they acquire the ego. That means that they acquire the natural instinctive tendency towards the divine sense objects. Mm. They develop a taste for the divine sense objects, in particular, for the quality of divine love that is present in Braj. So that abhimanavanti there, the ego, so that they become imbued with the ego. It's the word is tadatmyapannataya, all right? They become one, they become fused. Tadatmyapanna, we've had that word several times now, so that's a significant word in Nyaya also, right? That they've come together, tadatmyapanna, they've acquired some quality through sharing, through their coming together, through their alignment. They've been able to share some great qualities there, like the iron rod in the fire takes on that quality of the fire through the embrace, through the tadatmya, through the union of those two entities. So any two entities that are joined together in some way, they are mutually transformational. And so because they're mutually transformational, right, they become transformed. Well, what do you think? If it's transformational, then you become transformed. So the senses, the transformed senses, they become attuned to a particular way of being satisfied. So the senses that are desiring to see God, now those are the senses that are one with, that have become imbued with the internal potency. So once they become imbued with the internal potency, they have this ego. Okay? You have to say there must be. We can talk. It's metaphorical, but the senses take on a particular uh, identity, and that it is their identity to, just like the tongue is meant to taste, so the tongue is meant to taste something that is related to Krishna. That particular specificity of bhakti, that's what's in the ego. So the ego, the abhiman, that's what I do. That's who I am. My function as one of Krishna, of the senses uh, of this devotee, is to always chant the holy name for his benefit. That's my function as the tongue in this body. I will speak Hari Katha. The ears will only attune to the sound of Krishna's name. Other sounds don't have any attractive quality. That kind of dedication to Krishna. So the senses, they become imbued with the power, with that power of revelation, of Krishna's self-revelation, self-revelatory power. So tatra bhakti vishesha sapekshatvam uktam. So now in that connection, there's been a bhakti, there's been a sapekshatvam, there's a condition has been placed. And so that condition was that there's a tad bhakti vishesha. So there has to be some kind of special devotion. So the tad bhakti tatra bhakti vishesha sapekshatvam uktam. So what is that? Now here we have a verse, and so now this verse is coming again from that all-important second chapter of the first canto. Tat sraddhadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam Pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya sruta grihitaya. That's right at the very beginning, right? So that's the 1 to 12, 1 to 11. So 1 to 11 was Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yat jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. So that's our sort of our starting point, right? That we have these three tattvas and they're all the same, just different in terms of name, and let's say different in terms of perception, or different in degrees of revelation, self-revelation. The idea that God, within God, there are degrees of revelation, degrees of knowing Him, degrees of having His darshan. So, Tat Sraddhadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya. So there's Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. They Pashyanti Atmani Chatmanam. They see within the self, they see the Atma, they see the Supreme Self within the individual self. Pashyanti Atmani Chatmanam. Who are these people? Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. They do so through devotion, which has been awakened by the Shruti, by the hearing from the words of the devotees. Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. And so naturally that bhakti is also accompanied by jnana and vairagya. Jnana vairagya yuktaya. So because of this, they can see God within. Anta sakshatkar. So that's their bhakti vishesha. The bhakti vishesha is that one that was instilled in them, that bhaktya shruta grihitaya, that came through hearing from devotees, and in which they had faith, right? Tat shraddhadhana munaya, having faith in this triple tattva, this triple advaya tattva, this single truth manifest in triplicate. Tat shraddhadhana munayaha ityado. So the appearance of Bhagavan's potency depends upon the loving devotion of Bhagavan, as it is said. This is that Tat shraddhadhana munayo sloka. The sages who are full of faith see the self within their own hearts through devotion acquired by hearing and combined with knowledge and renunciation. And now the next part was that compound, right? Tadichamaya. So it's tadichamaya. So it's God's will that is being manifested in that swaprakashata shakti. So here it says tadichamaya iti udaharanam cha brahma bhagavator abhisheshatayaiva drishyate. That it can be seen, manifest, all right? That tadicchamayatvat, that the dependence on God's grace or God's will applies whether one is talking about Brahma Sakshatkar or Bhagavan Sakshatkar or Bhagavat Sakshatkar. In either case, same truth applies. It applies that dependency on God's will applies in both cases. Yatha Satyavratang Prati Sri Matsya Deva Vakye, as stated by Matsya Deva to King Satyavrata. So the following example of the necessity of the will of Bhagavan, which is necessary for both the realization of Brahman and Bhagavan without any distinction, is taken from the words of Matsya Deva to King Satyavrata. Madiyanga Mahimanancha Paranga Brahmeti Shabditam Vetyasya Nugrihitang Me Sama Prashna Vibritang Hridi. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I wish I could just pause.